Story 1. I was 16 when I started locking my bedroom door with a belt looped through the handle and tied to my desk. My dad hated closed doors. He said privacy was how kids learn to lie. At first, it was just little things. I'd come home from school, and my drawers would be half open. My notebook would be in a different place. Once, I found my phone charging in the kitchen, even though I knew I'd left it in my room. One night around 2 a.m, I woke up because the belt pulled tight. Somebody was slowly turning the handle from the other side. I held my breath and waited. It stopped. Then came his voice, low and calm. "You asleep in there?" I didn't answer. After a few seconds, I heard his footsteps move away. The next morning, he smiled over coffee and said, "You shouldn't lock doors in my house. Makes people curious." I moved out 3 weeks later. I still can't sleep if I don't hear a lock click. Story 2. My dad had this habit of showing up places he had no reason to be. At first, it almost felt funny. I'd walk out of work and see his truck across the parking lot. I'd go to the grocery store and catch him at the end of an aisle pretending to compare cereal boxes. He always had an excuse. Just happened to be nearby. Needed one thing. Small town. Then I started noticing he only showed up when I hadn't told him where I was going. One Friday night, I went to my friend Tasha's apartment and left my phone in my car by accident. When I came back down, my dad was standing beside it with his hands in his jacket pockets. He looked almost bored. "How'd you know I was here?" I asked. He looked at me for a second too long, then said, "You'd be amazed what people leave turned on." When I checked my car, there was a tracking app installed on my old tablet, the one I kept in the glove box and forgot about months earlier. I didn't confront him. I just stopped feeling safe anywhere. Story 3. After my parents divorced, I had to spend every other weekend at my dad's place. He lived alone in this narrow rental house with bare walls and no pictures anywhere, like he didn't want proof that anyone had ever lived there before him. The first strange thing was the rules. No showering after 10. No headphones in the house. No closing blinds in the guest room. He said he needed to keep visual awareness. I didn't even know what that meant. The second weekend I stayed there, I woke up sometime before dawn and saw a light come to the crack under the door. I sat up and stared at it. Then I saw the shadow of his shoes. He was just standing there. No movement. No knocking. Nothing. I checked my phone. 4:13 a.m. After maybe a minute, the shadow shifted and disappeared. In the morning, I asked him if he needed something last night. He buttered his toast without looking up and said, "I like to make sure people are where they're supposed to be." I told my mom I'd rather go to court than go back there. For once, she didn't argue. Story 4. When I was 13, my dad became obsessed with the crawl space under our house. He'd disappear down there for hours with a flashlight and a toolbox, then come back filthy and irritated if anybody asked what he was doing. Around the same time, he started accusing us of stealing from him. Nothing specific, just things. He put little pencil marks on drawers and strips of tape on cabinet doors to see if anyone had opened them. He'd come into my room and stare at the floor like he was checking whether I'd moved something invisible. One night the power went out during a storm. Mom lit candles in the kitchen, and Dad didn't come upstairs. I went looking for him because she was scared. The crawl space door was open, and I could hear him whispering. Not talking, whispering, fast and angry, like he was arguing with someone. I leaned down and called his name. The whispering stopped instantly. Then from the dark under the house, he said, "You need to go back upstairs, right now." I never found out who he was talking to. Maybe nobody. Maybe that was worse. Story 5. My dad was a youth pastor, which made everything harder. Nobody believes you when the scary person in your house is also the nicest man in church. At home, he controlled everything. The way we sat at dinner, the volume of our voices, what we wore to bed. He called it discipline. My mother called it peacekeeping. I called it survival. The worst night happened after I came home 10 minutes late from a school event. He was sitting in the dark living room, fully dressed, not watching TV, not on his phone, just waiting. "You embarrass me," he said. I remember how quiet the house was. I remember how carefully I set my keys down, because even that felt dangerous. He made me stand in front of him and explain minute by minute where I'd been. Every time I hesitated, he smiled. Not angry, not loud, just pleased, like he was finally getting the version of me he wanted. At some point I realized he didn't care where I'd been. He just liked watching me panic. That was the first night I understood control, could look calm. Story 6. My father worked nights as a security guard, so as a kid I got used to hearing the front door open at weird hours. Usually it didn't bother me. Then one winter it started happening when he wasn't scheduled. He'd come home at 1, then leave again at 2. Then I'd hear him back at 3. If you asked where he'd gone, he'd just say, checking on things. One Saturday morning, I noticed muddy boot prints in the hallway outside my room. It hadn't rained in 2 days. The mud looked fresh, still dark at the edges. There were 4 prints going toward my door and 4 going back. That night, I pushed my dresser in front of the entrance. Around midnight, I heard the knob turn once, then twice, then a soft bump against the wood. He didn't yell, didn't pound, just stood there. The next day, he looked at the dresser and laughed under his breath. If somebody really wanted in, he said, that wouldn't stop them. I stayed awake until sunrise and packed a bag before school. I never slept there again. Story 7. I used to think my dad only got dangerous when he drank. That lie kept me in that house longer than it should have. The sober version was quieter, but somehow worse. He remembered everything. Every mistake, every argument, every boy who ever texted me, every time I chose my mom's side in a fight. He stored things away. When I was 19, I came home from community college for a weekend and noticed a notebook on his recliner. It was open face down, like he'd left it in a hurry. I shouldn't have touched it, but I did. It was full of lists, my schedule, my mom's work hours, my brother's practice times, license plate numbers, addresses, notes like, usually alone on Tuesdays, and lights off by 11. I was still holding it when he walked in. He didn't get mad. That's what scared me. He just took the notebook from my hands, closed it, and said, some people have to keep records when nobody else pays attention. I left before dinner. He called me 14 times that night. I changed my number before morning. Story 8. The summer I turned 15, my dad got really into emergency preparedness. At least that's what he called it. He boarded up the basement windows, bought radios, installed new locks, and told us not to tell neighbors anything about our routines. For a while it seemed like paranoid dad stuff, annoying but manageable. Then he started doing drills. He'd kill the power without warning and make us sit in the dark basement. He'd whisper that somebody was watching the house. He'd stop in the middle of dinner and say, if I tell you to run, you run. One night, he burst into my room after midnight and told me to get downstairs now. His face looked pale and sweaty. I thought there was an intruder. My little sister was crying. Mom kept asking what was wrong. He wouldn't answer. We sat in that basement for nearly 2 hours before Mom finally went upstairs to check. There was nothing. No broken window. No person outside. No sign of anything. Dad followed her up a minute later and said, almost offended, so you all think I made it up? I don't know what was outside that night, but after that, I knew whatever was happening in his head was eventually going to turn on us. Story 9. The last time I saw my father in person, I was 24 and home for my grandmother's funeral. I booked a motel because I wasn't going to stay in his house again. He acted offended but polite, which somehow made it worse. After the service, he offered to help me carry flowers to my car in the parking lot. He stood too close while I opened the trunk. You always did think I was a bad guy, he said. I told him I didn't want to do this there. He nodded like he understood. Then he said very softly, you know, if I'd really want to hurt you back then, I would have. There are sentences that change the temperature of the world around you. That was one of them. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something I should have understood years earlier. He had always known exactly how afraid I was. He had seen it, he had measured it, and he had enjoyed stopping just short of what he could blame on anger. I got in my car and drove 3 states without stopping. Sometimes people ask why I never gave him another chance. because fear has a memory, because houses remember footsteps, because a father doesn't have to hit you every time to teach your body to panic when he enters a room. And because if you ever live with a man like that, you learn one rule that matters more than blood, guilt, or family name. Never let yourself be alone with him.